Hello and welcome to Elves, Rings, and Nerdy Things. This is your co-host, Sam Marvin. I am here with my other co-host, Sean. Sean, how you doing?
Good. Lucky number 19, Sam. Steve Yzerman. This is the Steve Yzerman episode.
We are powering forward. This is our first episode covering Season 2 of the Legend of Vox Machina. We'll be talking about episodes 1, 2, and 3 in that animated show on Amazon Prime. Before we jump in, we have a couple of plugs. So first and foremost, we have a Facebook page, Elves, Rings, and Nerdy Things. If you're not on Facebook and you want to get in touch with us, elvesringsnerdythings@gmail.com. We also have some new aspects of our show. Sean, why don't you tell us about these new ways for people to engage with us?
Yeah, our podcast servicer, Buzzsprout, has just created a subscription service. So you can go on to Buzzsprout on the website. Links are on our Facebook page. And every episode that we post, new episodes on Wednesdays, is a Buzzsprout link. So you can find it through that as well. But the subscription service, if you enjoy the show and you would like to donate, I think $3 is the lowest monthly sum. Cancel anytime. You can donate money to us. It will go towards all of the software that we use to produce the show. Even if you don't like our show, you can be a monthly subscriber and the quality of our podcast will get better. So either way,
if you like what you hear, show us a little gratitude. If you don't like what you hear, then help us improve. Either way, end result is subscriptions via Buzzsprout. You can find those links, as Sean said, on our Facebook page. You can find them when the new episodes are pushed out. And then we have another piece of new development here. Sean, what is the other new development with Elves, Rings, and Nerdy Things?
The second development is we are migrating. We're not migrating because we're not getting rid of all of the other platforms that we use, but we're also moving into the YouTube realm. I think the idea behind this is we will eventually like to post more video-based content as well throughout 2023. So,
well, we're very good looking.
Yeah, and
we're very handsome, and honestly, we both have faces for YouTube.
And if I'm gonna grade myself out of 10, I'm like a 9.
Yeah, I would say that.
Thank you.
I'm a 9.1 probably.
Okay, all right. I think it's because you have hair, but.
It could be, yeah, but you're wearing a hat, so no one's the wiser.
But YouTube will allow us to do some other things as well. So we'll have more video content. We will also eventually, hopefully, have closed captions on those videos as well. So we're trying to expand and get a little bit better here at Elves, Rings, and Nerdy Things. And YouTube is just the next horizon that we are going to approach.
I think it's going to be good for those instances where we're talking about specific images. So think about certain scenes in the Rings of Power or some of the aspects of the most recent things that we've talked about, the animated Lord of the Rings movie, the animated Hobbit movie. YouTube is a great way to have the audio and the visual components right there. Even if we're not taking clips and producing these long videos on our own, it still is a nice way to illustrate the type of thing that we're talking about. So check us out on YouTube. It's Elves, Rings, and Nerdy Things, and then the YouTube will link to the podcast feed and vice versa. So you can find us on there as well.
One cool thing about YouTube as well that I've been kind of playing with as I've been uploading these episodes, I've created playlists for each topic that we cover. So if you're looking for all Legends of Vox Machina, seasons 1 and 2 will be in one location on a playlist. So hopefully as we produce more episodes, you'll be able to find things easier and less searching and scrolling through our Spotify list of episodes. Things will be grouped together a little bit more neatly. So looking forward to that as well.
Cool.
But Sam, we are finally getting into a long-awaited season 2 of a new show. Tell us about it.
That's right. Before we jump into the specific details, spoiler disclaimer for The Legend of Vox Machina seasons 1, season 2 on Amazon Prime, and also the Critical Role Twitch stream or Twitch game upon which the cartoon, the anime is based. So this is episode 1, season 2, Rise of the Chroma Conclave. And episode 1 begins where our season 1 finale left off. It's almost a exact kind of picking up on that cliffhanger. Dragons are attacking the city of Iman, while the sovereign Uriel, is renouncing his throne. There are 4 dragons, very large dragons. There's one each of the white, black, green, and red variety. Each of these dragons has different abilities that manifest during the attack. So the green dragon breathes a poisonous gas, and a lot of the members of the audience listening to the sovereign's speech, including the sovereign himself, are killed in this poisonous gas cloud. The various members of Vox Machina and some of the other council members are able to survive the initial attack using magic and other abilities. The black dragon shoots acid, and the acid burns people alive, basically consumes them alive. And the dragons are also attacking the structure. So you have poison gas and falling acid. I think the white dragon is shooting ice, and parts of the castle are falling onto the crowd. So there are many casualties. Not all of them are people that we've met before, but there are many casualties. And as Vaxildan is seeing this happen, he has a vision of a wispy figure kneeling down toward the dying people. And that's a hint of some development in his character yet to come. The group splits up during the attack because of the damage being done by the dragons, but they all agree to meet up at Gilmore's shop. During the escape to Gilmore's shop, they express shock that dragons are working together. Normally, that is not something that is seen in this world. We get some images of the dragons moving around the city and attacking. The red dragon is breathing fire. The other dragons are using their breath weapons to cause serious damage and inflict casualties on the residents. The red dragon has a large stone in its chest, and he calls himself Thordak, the Cinder King. During the attack, he destroys the castle of Iman and the Cloudtop district. It's a really interesting depiction of his breath weapon kind of turning a white hot blue heat and then basically melting the castle, melting a hole through the castle, and it all collapses. During the escape from the Cloudtop district, Percy is burned by acid from the Black Dragon, but Pike heals him. Shortly after that, they meet up at Gilmore's shop, which has been leveled during the attack. They find Gilmore. He is buried under rubble. He is healed by Pike, and then he tells them to take what they can from his store as they escape. He then uses a magical stone to transport them to their keep on the outskirts of the city, and that's just as the area around his shop is collapsing into molten magma pools. Back at the keep, they see a line of refugees streaming out of the city, heading toward their keep for safety. And then the white dragon appears, and it's using its breath weapon to kill refugees fleeing toward their keep. The white dragon then destroys their keep itself. Keyleth summons a tree portal, and everybody escapes to Whitestone, everybody being Vox Machina and many of the refugees as well. In Whitestone, there's a discussion among the group about what they're going to do. Some of them want to help and fight the dragons and return to Iman. Some of them want to walk away, knowing or thinking that they're not powerful enough to take on that task. Scanlan is one of those who does not want to fight the dragons. He thinks it's a suicide mission. During this time, they're on the balcony overlooking the city of Whitestone, and they see it being rebuilt, and they see it as an example of what they can accomplish when they work together. And that is kind of the impetus for Scanlan's change of heart, and that commits the entire group to coming up with a solution to the dragon problem. And they decide to go to the city of Vasselheim and find help. We then, as the episode ends, we get a flashback or a cut to the dragons back in the city of Iman, and the dragons are discussing conquering other cities. And they specifically mention the city of Westron, where Umbrasyl, the black dragon, is going to take the lead on the assault. And that's it for episode 1. So Sean, what did you think?
A very good carryover from season 1 into season 2. Still high quality stuff. I mean, we talked a lot about season 1, how condensing a D&D campaign into a 30-minute episodic format is difficult, but they do a very good job, and that continues right through season 2. Episode 1, my big moments were just the comic relief of Scanlan that we talked about. Season 1, it picks up with season 2. Amon is destroyed. The city that they call their home is gone. Refugees are coming into their keep. And Scanlan's line is, if you go into my room, that's a totally normal swing. Just when you're looking at all of like the despair, to have that line is just perfect comedic timing. It's levity. It brings a little lightness to the atmosphere. only to be destroyed by
Yeah.
Vorogol coming in, the white dragon, and attacking the keep just moments later. But yeah, I thought it was great.
Yeah,
I
that was
was right on the voice
you
of
called it.
Thordak. On our fantasy news update, episode 16, I think it was, of the podcast, we talked about the new voice actors. I called Lance Reddick as being Thordak, and shit on your face, Sam.
Oh, hey.
I was right. But we had a conversation because we didn't really know who voiced the other dragons. And I just pulled it up. You were right. Cree Summer is Raishan.
And she was in season 1. Is that correct?
I don't think she was.
All right.
Look that up as I'm talking about the other two. You were correct that Matt Mercer is Umbrasyl, the black dragon. And you thought Mercer might also be Vorugol, but I was surprised to find out that it is Liam O'Brien.
Interesting. Okay.
Who voices Vorugol, the white dragon. But very cool opening to this second season. I mean, we left off with season 1 with the speech that the Sovereign Uriel was giving. We saw the alarm bells and we saw dragons flying towards the city. But this picks up right where we left off. The dragons, clearly too much of a force, a handful for the city to defend themselves, and to show how big of a threat they are. I mean, the Briarwoods pale in comparison to 4 ancient dragons attacking your city. So it really stepping up the game, like the new BBEG, Big Bad Evil Guy, is definitely one that is going to test our group of adventurers and our heroes this season.
Yeah, I think there's a concept in D&D as parties and party members level up, the nature of the threat obviously needs to as well, and there's a way of thinking about it. So at the lowest levels, you're dealing with wolves in the local area, the menace to the local town wherever you start, and then you get a little bit bigger than that, and maybe you're talking about the menace to the region in which that starting town is located, and then you're talking about threats to the entire continent, and then eventually it's threats to the entire world. And that is really what the Legend of Vox Machina and what that journey is. So in the prior season, we saw the threat to the local area, the threat of the kingdom, the Briarwood specifically. There's a lot of personal stuff there, but that was local in nature. We were not worried about the Briarwoods taking over the entire continent. That's what we have now. These are 4 immensely powerful dragons, and that's something that really comes through, is just how insignificant resistance is offered. I think there's one instance of Grog attacking, I think it's Raishan, and his axe just breaks and he does 0 damage. And seemingly none of the guards or the other members of the Council of Tal'Dorei are able to stop them, including relatively powerful Archmaid Allura Vysoren. You know, she can protect people from the poisonous gas and the falling rubble and things like that, but she's not able to destroy or damage or hamper the dragons themselves. And that's really what is motivating what we get to in episode 2 and episode 3, which is this: okay, if we're going to take these dragons on, we need to become more powerful. We need to get more powerful weapons and maybe some more powerful allies.
And that also explains Scanlan's desire to just get the fuck out, because he's like, Han had the greatest army in Tal'Dorei, and they just got wiped out by the dragons. So what the fuck are we going to do?
Yeah.
Like the 5 of us. So, yeah, very well, what's the word?
They set the stakes, right? These are,
yes.
they do a good job in showing how weak the party is in comparison. And this is something that, you and I have both been dungeon masters before. And I think I get a lot of my thinking around this from Matt Colville, who runs a very successful YouTube channel, has his own game publishing company. And one of his very early pieces of advice for dungeon masters is, in a campaign, show the players the big bad evil guy. Show them early, but demonstrate how weak they are in comparison, and don't be afraid to do it in a manner that is dangerous and threatening. But then, if you pull back a little bit. So this is what we saw right? We saw Percy get burned by acid, and we saw other people get burned by acid and, die. Pike was able to heal him, but again, neither of them is doing anything against Umbrasyl in that moment, right? Mm-hmm. So they're getting a taste of the danger and the power in a way that's motivating, not in a way that's demotivating to the party, maybe with the exception of Scanlan, but he comes around, and that's why you have an adventuring party to begin with.
Yeah, and then a little bit more on the dragons in this episode. The white dragon, I really like the design of making him look kind of like a rhino. I don't know if you caught onto that as well.
I caught his design. I didn't make the connection to a rhino. The thing that I was thinking about is how in the D&D lore, which I don't think this is really, this various characteristics of the chromatic dragons are wholly fabrications of Dungeons and Dragons. White dragons are described as being more animalistic, less intelligent than the other dragons, especially the red and the green dragons. That has kind of come through. I won't say I was a huge fan of the design of it. I do like my dragons to be more serpentine, more, worm like. For instance, Smaug in the Peter Jackson Hobbit trilogy. Don't shake your head at me. That's how it's pronounced. But yeah, it was a design choice. I mean, I think they need to differentiate these dragons for people who are not very familiar, and that's one way to do it.
We also see the white dragon use True Sight. Vex and Scanlan try to recreate their tactics that they used on Brimscythe, the blue dragon, who Brimscythe was an adult dragon, right?
Yes, although
but these are ancient dragons, so there's a distinction in difficulty. That's why they were able to slay one dragon and then get their asses kicked by these.
Yes, the idea is
you're stepping up the difficulty.
Yeah, the idea is that the older a dragon gets, the stronger, smarter, more powerful it becomes. And Brimscythe was a younger dragon, even though he was, now we know, confirmed that he was in league with these other dragons. He was the junior partner, so to speak.
So we see Voragol, the white dragon, use his True Sight. He's able to see through the magic of the, what would you call them?
The illusory.
Yes, the
Vex
illusory.
And, Scanlan.
Yeah, as they run out to try to distract Voragol. Voragol is able to see through the illusion and recognize that they're magic. And then he looks back at Scanlan and Vex, and they realize in that moment, oh shit, this isn't going to work. This is a little bit different than what we've experienced in the past.
Yeah.
So that full fight scene is very quick. Their basic MO is just to get out of there. And their keep is destroyed. Like Voragol shoots ice straight into the keep. That's the only place to hide. And when you've got nowhere else to go, the only other option is to get out of there. So Keyleth, using her tree stride, I think is the name of the spell, gets them out.
Is it tree? I think it's teleport through plants.
Okay.
Trees. There is a spell called tree stride, and then you think that's what this would be, but it's actually, I think if you're in the woods, you walk faster through the trees or something like that.
So they get out and they get back to Whitestone with Percy's sister, and they are able to save a few refugees. Now, I did say one thing in my notes. There's two things I didn't like with this episode. The first one is just the animation of the mouths of the dragons when they're talking. It just looked strange. And it's something that I'm very quickly going to just get over. But I noted it, and it kind of took me back, especially when Raishan was talking. Their mouths are too long to be able to talk like English, like they're speaking or whatever language you speak. So the animation was weird. And then in Whitestone, all of the Whitestone guards are still dressed like they dressed under the Briarwoods. Did you notice that?
Yeah, and when you call it out, I noticed it. I make that connection, but it didn't jump out to me during my watch.
I wanted a completely different design for guards that aren't working for evil sorceress and vampire lord. It just seems strange. Like if you're going to use these guards to keep an entire city in line, and they're going to be like these brutal, ruthless guards for your population, and you're just going to have them dress the exact same, I feel like that would put people on edge. But
you know what it is? It's literally a changing of the guard. They needed a different look to complete that. I will say I've probably only been a couple of weeks at the most since the Briarwood affair. I think we did get a little bit of a time jump in the end of season 1. It could just be, hey, the new uniforms are on back order. Really sorry, remote location, restarting the trade routes. We haven't gotten that special dye in yet, but we're working on it.
Well, at least don't wear those creepy helmets. Like
that's true.
You can at least show their faces.
Yeah.
And apparently there's no threat anymore. So like the guards don't need to be wearing helmets that obscure the face. But I don't know. Those are my two things. Otherwise, like I said, episode 1 is just a carryover from where we left off in season 1. So far, so good in episode 1. Do you have anything else you want to add about season 1 or episode 1, season 2?
Sure. A couple things with the use of the Whitestone recovery as an example of the good that they can do in the world. I don't recall if this was used in the live play campaign, but I really like it. It helps to offset, I guess, to a certain extent, when you're doing a D&D campaign, you're going along with the flow. So the players are going to pick up on the story that the DM is writing. And there's really not a question, okay, we're not going to not fight these dragons in the show or in the live play. So they go through with the quests to acquire the tools to do so. In the anime, you need to come up with slightly different character motivations that make a little bit more sense from a story perspective. So that was good. I like that a lot. We do get a hint of kind of Scanlan having a divergent opinion, even though he came around. That's something that we can anticipate will continue or re-arise as they move through the quests to fight the dragons. There were a couple other things. We get a mention of Raishan, the green dragon, the one who uses poison gas to kill the sovereign, among many others, at the Cloudtop district. Raishan is a female dragon. I don't know if that comes through with her voice acting, but it's in the show. She's a small female dragon who had been cursed in the past. And Raishan mentions having seen Keyleth before, and we get a flashback to the encounter in the cavern where Keyleth sees those eyes, and we had one of those eyes pop up and illuminate, and that turned out to have been Raishan looking through that gemstone and seeing Keyleth. In the live play, we get, I think it's a little bit of I don't want to say retcon, but it is explained that Raishan was hiding among a tribe of Ashari and had seen Keyleth and Vox Machina visit that tribe during her Aramente. And I don't know if we're going to get that. If we do get it, it would be pretty cool. I know Pyra, that was the tribe of Ashari where Raishan had been hiding, is called Pyra, and that is located not too far from Vasselheim. We could get that. In the live play Twitch show, they had visited Pyra before the encounter with the Briarwoods, and then they went back after the Chroma Conclave attack on Iman. So we may get one of those visits to Pyra, which would be interesting, because similar to how a lot of the Briarwood arc was related to Percy's personal journey and backstory, the Pyra story is very much Keyleth's personal journey. So that could be another way to kind of spotlight that character. It seems like right now we're getting a lot of Vex and Vax. And you had an observation about one of the things that Vax sees during the attack. You want to expand on that?
Yeah, when everybody's getting killed in the Cloudtop district, we see Vax is looking at some deceased guards, it looks like, and he sees a image of a wispy female type character with like a white mask. And when he looks back, she like disappears. So throughout the first 3 episodes, I think he sees that image twice.
I think that's right.
He sees it again in Vasselheim in episode 2, but it's just foreshadowing for some stuff we're going to get with him this season. And yeah, I think they've set it up pretty much to where season 1 was, there was a lot of Keyleth development in season 1 with Percy as well. So I think it very much, each season is going to focus on different characters. This season 2, we're going to get a lot of Vex and Vax, because we saw a lot of their childhood backstory in episode 3, and we'll get to that. And then in future seasons, we'll get some more Pike. We'll get some more.
Well, we're going to get some Pike in this season, because we know we're going to Western. We're going to Western, and we've got what's his name? I can't think of his name right now. Fonzie playing
Henry Winkler.
We get Henry Winkler as one of her family members, and that will be happening. When you think about it, we've got Grog with his sword, which we'll talk about in the next two recaps. Both his journey. There's going to be a lot of character development, and it's driven by the lengths that they have to go to in order to fight the dragon. So this is going to be some good content, both from a fantasy D&D action perspective, then also the dramatic character moments.
Yeah, so let's use this to get into episode 2 now.
Let's do it.
The Trials of Vasselheim. The group arrives in Vasselheim through a tree hanging off a cliff. They all begin to fall off the edge of the cliff as they emerge through the portal created by Keyleth. Keyleth transforms into a large eagle and saves Pike and a couple other people, but Scanlan creates magical boobs that they bounce off of on the ground to save them from the fall. They enter the city after seeing another cameo of a Matt Mercer guard, which was pretty great. We see temples to the prime deities. Remember, this is a city basically controlled by priests and priestesses. They go to see the Dawn Marshals that run the city to ask for help in fighting the Chroma Conclave. The Marshals use a magic waterfall to see what happened, but say they will not help. They begin by saying that they have survived millennia because of their isolation and not getting involved in the conflicts of Tal'Dorei. They get sent to the Slayer's Take, hunters for hire, to see their patron, after one of the members of the Marshals. Do you remember what goddess or prime deity he served? I don't think they ever really said.
I think the silver dragon.
Was it the silver
dragon?
Or
the platinum dragon, rather.
Platinum dragon. But that Marshal sends the group to the Slayer's Take. Vax isn't thrilled by that. Vex seemed pretty happy. Grog, on their way, hears whispers as you see Gem on his sword light up. So he kind of goes off in his own direction because he feels hungry. The Slayer's Take have a bounty on Vex and Vax, we discover. And the Slayer's Take wants to either get the money that is owed to them or kill them. That seems to be the two options. After Grog gets his sandwich and his ale, he finds a temple that looks like it's for fighting, and he gets distracted again and walks into it. There, Grog finds an individual named Earthbreaker Groon, who says he will give Grog answers if he can earn them. He then challenges Grog to a fight. The rest of the group tries to convince the Slayer's Take to kill the dragons for their hoards of gold. A voice stops the Take from killing Vox Machina. A trapdoor then opens up and the ground falls beneath them. We cut back to Grog, who is being destroyed by Earthbreaker Groon, who we find out is also blind. And Grog is just getting the shit kicked out of him. The Slayer's Take patron turns out to be an ancient sphinx. The sphinx tells everyone how unprepared they are for this battle and really gets into their heads psychologically. When they reject the option to leave, the sphinx says they have learned to give everything for the success of this mission, and that is what's going to be required to be successful. The sphinx tells them to look out for vestiges of divergence. These are super powerful weapons and pieces of armor that were used to fight the gods millennia ago. And she tells Vox Machina that one called the Deathwalker's Ward is entombed near a lake just to the west of Vasselheim. And it is the vestige of the Matron of Ravens. And that is where we leave off. The group is setting off for a quick side adventure to find a vestige of divergence. Sam, what are your takeaways from episode 2 of season 2?
Episode 2 was good. It was a fair amount of, I guess, table setting. We've mentioned before how there were a lot of changes made to adapt the live play to the anime. This is an area where that's happening pretty considerably. In the live play, the group has been to Vasselheim before. The opening adventure to the live play show ended with them going to Vasselheim to return some very powerful evil artifacts that they recovered on behalf of one of the temples, the Temple of the Platinum Dragon. They were assisting one of the temple members in that quest. During their trip to Vasselheim, they encounter the Slayer's Take in the woods. That encounter is replaced with this Vex and Vax backstory of them poaching a Hydra. We get, I think, a few nods to that whole encounter from the live play in the form of some of the Slayer's Take members that we see. There are two prominent members, Zara and Kashar or Cash, and they become returning characters. They were characters from the live play, voiced by Mary Elizabeth McGlynn and Will Friedle of Boy Meets World fame. They show up multiple times throughout the run of the first campaign. But then I think we also get a shot of a character named Lyra, who was actually played by Felicia Day of a variety of different fantasy and kind of nerd culture products, like I think the Guild show, which is based on her experiences playing World of Warcraft. And then she was obviously, I think she was a the founder of Geek and Sundry, which was the first channel under which Vox Machina played their Twitch stream. And she was the host of the Amazon Prime Rings of Power podcast, which I have not listened to in full. So
this is
take that for what it is.
Cool side story though. Like, we're talking about a time when Critical Role, who now is like the biggest D&D, like non-Wizards of the Coast group out there. And this was a time when they were on somebody else's channel on Twitch. And now they have their own Amazon Prime show. They have books, merchandise, their own like 5e companion guides, like so many different things. They've really blown up in, oh my gosh, it's been like 7 years now though, right?
So it's been a long time. And you're right. She gave them
their start.
She gave them their first shot. And her character, the episodes where she is playing this character are some of the best early Vox Machina. Absolutely hilarious. So I love the acknowledgement of that and the reference. I think it's Lyra. She's a kind of a bookish looking character in the background. I don't think she has any lines when all the Slayers take hunters are around. So that was fun.
I missed Lyra. I have to go back and watch it now to see if I can spot her. But
I think it's a blink and you'll miss type thing. So that was fun. There was also the Earthbreaker Groon encounter with Grog. That was another part of this episode which had some buildup in the live play that we didn't get. So in the live play, the first time they come to Vasselheim, Grog participates in a public fight club, basically, and the group is making bets on his performance, and he gets beaten up again. He loses his match, I think, to the same character of Earthbreaker Groon. Then later, Grog comes, when they come back to Vasselheim, on a series of occasions, he has additional encounters with Earthbreaker Groon, and it contributes to his development. But the first one was very much a gladiator fight club type thing, which had some pretty hilarious results as well. So there's a little bit of backstory that people who are familiar with the Twitch game are going to recognize as being absent, but we get it presented in a way that's effective for the anime.
Oh, it's still great though. It's completely in character for Grog to hear whispers from his sword, misinterpret the whispers as him just being hungry and like going off and getting a sandwich. Yeah. And then just like the being distracted by a cool looking building and then just walking to the building because it looks cool. Like, these are all things that track for Grog. And that goes into the ability to take a long form storytelling of Critical Role and translate that into a TV show. Because the people who write the show, like all of the original voice actors from Critical Role, are either executive producers or writers for this animated series. And if anybody's going to know their character, it's the people who've been playing them for years and years and years.
Yeah.
So if you ask Travis Willingham what would make sense for Grog to make his way to this temple to fight Earthbreaker Groon, he's going to be able to come up with a response pretty quick that makes sense for Grog. And yeah, just great being able to have them in the room writing stories for their characters. And when you have a question like that, to be able to go to any of them, like I said, who've been playing them for years, and be able to come up with something that makes sense and won't feel jarring to the watcher is a great asset for the show.
Absolutely. You had some other comments on the kind of the visual aspect of Vasselheim and some of the other things that we saw.
Yeah, I'll be super quick. Like I said, like you said, this episode didn't really have a whole lot. It was just a lot of moving the plot forward. Vasselheim looked great. It's really cool to listen to the Critical Role episodes and then picture what these cities look like in your head. And then when you actually get to see them, like, my imagination isn't that great. So when I hear what Amman looks like, Vasselheim, what I picture in my head doesn't do justice to what I'm actually seeing. So I love being blown out of the water by some of these visuals. And Vasselheim is awesome. We see all of the different temples, and I noticed this. They remind me of Pokemon gyms. Like, each temple, if you have the Wild Mother, there's a lot of grass and like nature stuff. The Storm Lord looks like a Viking settlement. So like each
I saw they had like lightning bolts coming out of the beams of the roof. Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah, so each temple is designed to look like their prime deity. And yeah, to me, it just gave me Pokemon gym vibes. When they're with the Slayer's Take, we get a character that is in a wheelchair, and he has retractable swords that come out of the chair. that was just a really cool touch that I really loved.
And I thought of the character from season or campaign 2 of Critical Role, and his name is escaping me, but their guide when they're in the Isocross region.
Oh yeah, yep.
Yeah, I can't remember his name, but that was a really fun NPC and a little nod to the use of the combat wheelchair in D&D.
But then this is the fantasy is for everyone. So representation matters, and being able to see someone who's functioning in a wheelchair in a fantasy world is a great visual. No one cares about you. I'm no different. That's the line when the Sphinx is in everybody's head. It is like really fucking with them. There's a scene where Scanlan goes, "It's okay. You don't have to say anything to me. I fucked up so much. There's nothing new you can say to me that I don't already know." And then she goes, "No one cares about you. I'm no different." And then that's it. And then Scanlan just goes, "Well, damn."
Yeah.
It's funny, but it's also like, that is really shitty.
It is.
Have to deal with that. Yeah.
Scanlan is, I think maybe we've talked about this before, but Scanlan is a lot of people's favorite character from this first campaign because he is this combination. He's the stereotypical fantasy bard. He's flamboyant, he's musical, he sleeps around, he's colorful, but then he has this other side, which he does a really good job of covering up, where he is emotionally damaged. He has a hard time with those intimate relationships where he has to be vulnerable. Mm-hmm. You know, he has friends with the people in Vox Machina, but he doesn't have anybody he really cares about. It's really good juxtaposition actually with Vex and Vax, because they have each other.
Oh, that's what
Percy
they do
and
this.
Cassandra.
Yeah, in Critical Role, they really, over the length of the campaign, do a really good job of showing that Scanlan's alone. He's by himself, because Pike has Grog, like you said, Vex, Vax. Percy has a sister, and then Percy ends up having, spoiler alert, Vex.
Keyleth and Vax.
Vax is Keyleth, if we're doing spoilers. So like all of them are in relationships with each other. Pike and Grog aren't like romantic, but they've been friends before the rest of the group got involved. So when everybody gets together, Scanlan's by himself, and this does a really good job of showing how secluded and isolated he is in the group, but also with the writing making it funny, like him saying, "Well, damn,"
which is exactly how he deals with that kind of isolation.
Making light of it.
He makes light of it, right? He's cracking jokes. He was making sex swing jokes during the middle of an evacuation in which women and children were being froze to death. So it does have this really great combination of the light and the dark, which is how a lot of fantasy should be. I think should be done, because it can't be all dark. It can't be the world is ending because of these dragons. The world is ending because of these vampires. There has to be humor injected into it. Otherwise, it just becomes depressing, really. Yeah. But he encapsulates that really well.
I was going to say, it's also a great representation of real life too. Mm-hmm. Like when you think of some of the best comedians, how tormented they are internally. Like we hear the stories about like Robin Williams, how he is the funniest person on the planet, but internally he's going through depression, he's going through addiction, like all of these problems. And they do such a good job of putting on being a character. Mm-hmm. And Scanlan is doing that throughout this series. He's being a character and hiding the pain that he really has. And really small throwaway line with the Sphinx, but there's so much more behind it as well. And then my last line of notes for Vasselheim, we get to see Black Powder Victor. One of my favorite Critical Role episodes that they do. So they always do on Halloween, they dress in cosplay. There was an episode where Matt Mercer dressed as Victor.
Oh yeah.
It was so good. And he looks almost exactly like the animation that they used for this show. So we see Victor, and we learn that Ripley has been in Vasselheim recently, like within the week, right? He said like a week ago, somebody came in.
That could be right. I don't recall the specific timeline.
Yeah. So we know Ripley's still out there. Victor confirms it by saying she only had one hand. And Percy knows that Ripley only has one hand. And there's only one other individual out there who might be looking for black powder. So that's the end of episode 2.
All right. So let's move right along into episode 3. This episode is titled The Sunken Tomb. Begins with Pike having a vision of the people of Amon bringing their treasure, their valuables, to the feet of Thordak, the Cinder King, the Red Dragon. That vision ends with Thordak seemingly burning those people alive with his breath weapon. We then cut back to the party, and they have found the lake that the Sphinx mentioned as containing a temple, which has the first vestige of divergence. However, the temple is not visible. The lake is frozen, and Scanlan skates on this frozen lake with a foot version of Scanlan's magic hand. During this skating around, he is attacked by some fish people from under the water, but rescued. The two characters from the Slayer's Take that we mentioned earlier, Cash and Zara, show up to help the party. Working together, they find the tomb is underwater, and we have a combination of Keyleth and Zara part the water and keep it at bay long enough for the party to enter the tomb, and then the water rushes over them, but the tomb itself is dry. As the party is talking with Zara and Cash, they discover that the matron's champion, the person who possessed the vestige of divergence, was named Pervon Sewell. We also get Grog trying on a magic belt that he salvaged from the wreck of Gilmore's Glorious Goods. As soon as he puts it on, he immediately grows a beard. We also have another flashback, or the first flashback in this episode, of Vex and Vax as children when they decide to run away from their father, who is cold and mean toward them, implying also that one of the things that his father or their father uses against them is that they are half elves instead of full-blooded elves. When they are in the sunken tomb, there are a bunch of traps that the party has to deal with, and the entire group is separated. One half of the party is attacked by these fish people, and during this attack, we learn that Grog's beard grows back if cut. During the fight, Grog's sword, which is being used effectively, is speaking telepathically to him and says, "Yes, more blood." And we kind of see Grog seem to lose it a little bit. He's being empowered as he's killing these fish people. Pike notices this and gets worried. The other half of the group shows up in time to help the first half of the party finish their fight with these fish people, and including defeating a wizard or a mage that lived among the fish people. Zara and Cash split off and go out on their own, thinking that they're going to beat the party to Pervon's tomb. Vax investigates the tomb, and there's a kind of a hidden passage. As Vax is investigating this passage, this separate area, Percy finds a hidden lever and triggers it, and it lifts a sarcophagus out of the ground. Vex then comes over, looks over the sarcophagus, and doesn't find any magic traps. She and Percy then open this sarcophagus. Percy goes to touch the vestige, which is on the corpse of the Pervon character in the sarcophagus, and as he touches the vestige, black magic amplifies and shoots out of the sarcophagus and kills Vex. Pike tries to heal her, but it doesn't work, and the episode ends with that. Sean, what did you think of episode 3?
Great dungeon episode, like going through, trying to discover different pathways. There's a bunch of traps. It felt like a D&D session, which I really liked. But the biggest thing is the recurring Pervon joke. This is a thing, and I've experienced it as a DM. I know you have, because we've made fun of you.
Yep.
I can't remember the name that you came up with in particular off the top of my head, but
give me a second. I might come up with it.
But as a DM, when you're trying to create names just either very quickly or on your own, like you're preparing for a campaign or a session, and you come up with an NPC name, in your head, you're like, oh yeah, this is a great name. This is a fantasy name. It's going to work great. And then when you're actually in the session and then someone's like, oh, what's your name? And then you, as the character, say, oh, my name is Pervon. And it just doesn't land. And your players are laughing at you. How could you not think that this wouldn't sound weird or something like that?
Happens to the best of us.
Yeah. So this is a common thread. And Pervon has been in other stuff. There was another campaign, like a mini campaign that they just recently did, The Calamity, the Critical Role.
I haven't seen that, but he's in that.
Pervon is in it, and when Pervon makes his appearance, the characters at the table, or the actors at the table, start just like laughing because Pervon has entered the room. And they do it in Calamity where everybody's at like a feast, and then someone like announces someone entering.
Oh, like a herald or something?
Yeah, and they're like, Pervon Sewell, the champion of the Matron of Ravens, and then people like they just start dying laughing, but it's great.
I think he's mentioned in one of the kind of follow-up Vox Machina one-shots where they have to go to Pandemonium and recover Grog. And this is for various reasons, Liam O'Brien is plays a different character who is a servant of the Raven Queen, kind of not really a successor, but in some ways to Pervon. And they discuss Pervon again. I think that she even has Pervon's fingers as like a magic item in her bag of holding or something.
Yeah, so that just a great recurring joke. And then the other things we see just throughout, these weird fish people attack. Grog kind of loses it. We get like an Indiana Jones moment where they are trying to find the right tomb. Like there's all these like 6 or 7 different options. And yeah, then we close out the episode with just like the live stream with Vax over Vex's dead body, and Vex is dead. So we have like our first real casualty in the war. No one's died yet up to this point, correct? We've just had really injured people.
Well, I think it depends on Cassandra,
who
had her throat slit. And then in the finale of the season 1, it's also Vex. Or is it Keyleth? It's Keyleth, right? Who is hit by the
Keyleth
spell.
Does die. Yep.
Does she technically die, or does she go to 0 and they have to stabilize her or something like that?
No, I think she dies because they use the same spell that she used on Cassandra.
Right, but again, I don't know if Cassandra died or if that was a healing spell. Yeah, I think it's ambiguous enough where it could just be that person is unconscious and they bring them back from unconsciousness, away from death's door.
Not completely dead. Yeah.
This is dead. Yeah. Some things that I noticed.
Yeah, please. What else do you have?
The fight with the fish people. They fight the fish people in a kind of a large room before they get into the area with the crypt. But then in the area with the crypt, there are more dead fish people. And I think Scanley even has a joke calling it a fish orgy or something like that. Did you pick up on that?
I did, yeah.
I remember what happened somewhat in the live play, but I think we're setting up another encounter with whatever killed the fish people, because those fish people were already dead in that room before the group arrived. So that'll be fun. And I think it's going to have something to do with that little passage that Vax had started to investigate. And then the other thing is, in the live play, this adventure included Lady Kima, who we've already seen in the show. She was on the Council of Amon. She had a bigger role in the live play and that kind of the first adventure that they did. So we have no Kima here, which is fine. I think just kind of keeping things simple with the addition of Cash and Zara. That would just be too many additional characters to the party. And then we also get a lot of I'd call it maybe even codependence between Vex and Vax, and maybe more of that driven by Vax's need for Vex, which we kind of get that in the climax of those flashback scenes. And of course, it ties in really well with him losing her seemingly at the end of this episode.
Yeah, they hit that pretty hard with, it's clearly Vax dependent on Vex. And even with the Sphinx, she brings it up as well, where Vax's big thing is his dependence on Vex. But Vex's big thing is wanting to either earn the respect of her father or earn the love of her father. So yeah, it doesn't feel as reciprocal as like codependence, but yeah, definitely the wrong person died.
You could say that.
Because if Vax dies, seemingly Vex would be able to move on.
Yeah.
But this is a deal breaker for Vax.
Yeah. I mean, there's also going to be some tension between Vax and Percy as well, because it was kind of Percy triggered the trap that killed Vex. And we've already mentioned it. I don't know if it's been hinted at, but in the live play, there's eventually a romance between Percy and Vex. And one of Vax's concerns is, can you keep her safe? You've killed her. You've literally killed her once. Worried about that happening again. So that'll be some interesting drama. And then the final observation I had is we finally get Trinket kicking ass and taking names. The bear goes goes off in the fight against the fish people. And I think at one point is Pike riding around on his back, like,
Yeah.
and fighting people. Yeah, it was
Well,
great.
because Trinket saves Pike.
Yes, she's about to get basically eaten by these fish people. He comes over and wrecks them.
Destroys.
It was great. That was a lot of fun because we haven't seen Trinket do anything really up to this point.
No, everywhere they go, Trinket has to get left behind.
Yeah, and part of that was
the whole Briarwood arc. Trinket's just at their keep.
That's right. And that's different from the live play where Trinket came with them, and he did some cool stuff in the fight against some of the minions of the Briarwoods on the live play. But I understand it is both in D&D and in adaptations of D&D, having animal companions can be kind of a nuisance at points.
Hashtag justice for Trinket.
Justice for Trinket.
We need more Trinket in this season.
What was the weasel in campaign 2? Peanut?
Oh God. I don't remember its name, but the memes surrounding that weasel were so funny. The number of times it should have died.
Oh yeah, like when they were swimming underwater for seemingly hours or stuff like that. Yeah. Even in our own campaign, Haley's animal companion, the wolf, that was problematic at certain points.
Oh, as a DM, I've killed animal companions because I can only get to a certain point where I'm like, the bad guy alone in a room with this companion is going to attack it. And I'm willing to, it's demoralizing for the player to lose their animal companion, and it's kind of rough, but yeah, so I'm willing to kind of fudge motivations a little bit, but then I hit a point where I'm like, it just doesn't make sense anymore. This wolf's dying.
If you're trying to maintain verisimilitude, like that happens. It's an unfortunate fact of medieval style warfare, especially where horses, dogs, the animals that are on the battlefield are frequently casualties. There's actually, I remember when Haley and I were in London, I think this was Hyde Park or Kensington Gardens or something like that. There's a monument to all of the animals that have been casualties in war. We don't really think about it. And I don't want to end on this note because it's kind of sad, but I will say we just finished the third. No, it's not, I don't know if it's the third, but we just finished A Baptism of Fire in the Witcher series. And the author, Andrzej Sapkowski, how do you say his last name? Sapkowski. He is not hesitant at all to portray what actually happens to animals on the battlefield. It's pretty, it's sad, but it's the reality of a fantasy adventure where arrows are flying and animals are, and magic things are attacking. It happens.
I thought you were about to just leave off on a good note when you.
Well, we should probably figure out something else to end on there.
Hold on, you're saying I'm going to end on a good note. I just finished the third book of The Witcher. Sapkowski really murders his animals in this book. Give me something good to end on now.
So, I'm rereading Lord of the Rings.
Yep.
And if anybody wants to really get an appreciation for Tolkien's writing, the dialogue between Faramir and Frodo in The Two Towers is fantastic. And this is something where in comparison with the book, the films really don't do the character of Faramir much justice. And it was, I think, a criticism of the Jackson films when they came out. It's not, I think my feelings about Faramir have been more informed by the movies than by the book, but it is great stuff. You really get a sense of kind of Faramir as this very moral, very strong character in contrast with what he's like in the books. And Frodo too really comes off as very noble and very upright. And tying into something that we've talked about before in our Lord of the Rings coverage, Faramir makes statements that may have kind of contributed to the threads of fate that Gollum will say suffers at the end of the book, which was interesting to me. Anyway, so reread Lord of the Rings. There's always something there for you. And it's a really good pick-me-up when you are otherwise thinking about the realities of animals in fantasy.
And good feeling gone. Thank you, everybody, for sticking with us for episodes 1, 2, and 3 of season 2 of the Legend of Vox Machina. We're looking forward to the next 3 episodes that come out next week. Like we said at the beginning of the episode, we have a subscription service on Buzzsprout. We're putting episodes over onto YouTube that we're going to try to be more conscious of video content. And you can follow us on Facebook and catch all of the new developments that we come out with. Thank you for listening. Sam, you have anything else you want to add?
That's all I got. Everybody have a great week. We will see you for the discussion of the next 3 episodes of the Legend of Vox Machina Season 2. Sean, you have a great week as well.
Bye.
Bye.